Hi everyone and welcome to Equestrian. Today we will be learning about riding between our own mistakes. That is keeping our balance in harmony with the dynamic movement, making progress and so getting out of our comfort zone. Let's assume that we want to make progress. Usually we do, but sometimes we want it way more than other times. This applies to our own riding skills as well as to our horse. Usually, when we want to make progress, we ask for guidance from someone who is standing on the ground, an instructor or a trainer, as we should. Let's go over making progress step by step. First up, we've got the dynamic balance. If we have to sit straight and in a way that is considered aesthetically pleasing, how does this relate to the movement of the horse itself? We have to use a lot of muscles in a certain order to maintain our balance in each step. Wanting to even sit up straight on a moving horse, we have to move a lot ourselves. Next is understanding the point of your trainer's comments. Try to understand the idea and not just the message of the comment. For example, let's look at the heels down comment. You can correct everything step by step, or you can correct a lot in one go. And that brings us to correcting our mistakes, which is our next step. Correcting our mistakes is a daily activity for all equestrians. In the picture, you can see how we imagine it. It is a bit annoying that we are always ranging between different extremes when fixing our mistakes, so there are very few moments when we are near perfection. Let's assume that our progress is just a line going from one mistake to another. In the beginning, the mistakes are huge, but as we train, they decrease. Sometimes in the course of our equestrian education, something will happen to stop us, an injury for example. There are times when we correct our mistakes but don't make particular progress, usually when we focus on details. And there are also times when we make huge progress without focusing on our mistakes, usually when we compete a lot or when we are at the peak of the season. We ride a lot and the progress just happens by itself. All in all, we try to reach the perfection all the time. Let's upgrade our little picture by adding some stages of equestrian education. I encourage everyone to put their own goals here. And here I'm also trying to show you that each stage tolerates a certain range of each mistake appropriate to its level. We did cover the mistakes. Let's talk a bit about our comfort zone, which is our next step to making progress. It is important to clearly and precisely define your comfort zone, the arrangement in which you feel safe and comfortable. Constantly working to increase this comfort zone gives us progress and joy. Our comfort zone is a little bit like a dough. Imagine that on one of its edges lies, for example, flexibility. On the other side, we've got obedience, suppleness, contact, rhythm, and everything we care about. So if I start developing flexibility, then sometimes I may lose obedience. Other times I may work on suppleness or engagement. This way I expand our possibilities as a pair. I increase mine and my horse's abilities and thus increase our comfort zone. Next step is to step out of your comfort zone consciously. Progress requires constant but also conscious leaving the comfort zone and expanding the possibilities. It is always the rider who decides whether at a given moment they are ready to step out of their comfort zone. I'm not just talking about the day when we make an assumption that today is the day and that we want to make progress or change something. I'm also talking about each and every ride and every single moment in which we decide whether we want to improve a particular movement or whether we'd rather stay in our comfort zone while working on another element we care about more. I have complicated things a bit, so I'll explain. For example, if I care about a flexible extended trot and the horse has given a step that is flexible but shortened, it is my decision whether to ask for a correction in the direction of lengthening the stride or to saddle for flexibility. Our next step to making progress is rating our movements. One of the great discoveries for me has been to rate each transition in my own head. This opens up a whole new range of possibilities and a whole new quality of riding. How do I do it? After each command that you give to the horse and yourself, rate the execution of the movement on a scale from 1 to 10 on how good it was. And at that point, you can decide whether to correct the movement or whether it is good enough and there is no point in correcting it. This gives you not only the opportunity to rate your own aids, but also to praise your horse for a performance that may not be perfect, but it is really good. Another advantage is that 2 free seconds when your brain has to work, and the horse has the opportunity to adjust themselves in this newly imposed balance. In all of this, the quality of the half-halts is very important. The video on half-halts is up on our channel, and I encourage you to watch it if it hasn't caught your eye before. The next step would be to define your favorite mistakes. Usually we know a lot about our horses, which side they may be crooked to, which side they are more comfortable on, or what injuries they have sustained before, while very few riders pay attention to their own bodies and their own mechanics. Not everything is the fault and the result of the horse's mistake. The rider's mistakes should be fixed at home or at the gym. Lessons with your horse should not be used for that. So what do I do? All you need to do is reach into your memory and find your mistakes. See what was easy for you since childhood and what was a problem. Were you the fastest in class, or maybe you did the best flips? These are the things that will give you basic feedback about what you don't have a problem with and others may find it hard. It is also worth considering how your own spine is built. Do I have curvatures, and how do I actually let through those forces that the horse offers me? And where may I be blocking them? Of course, we are not talking about pathological situations, therefore some of these things may be hard to notice, but let's think about it for a second. Maybe you're always standing with one leg more forward. Most of us do have this habit. Or maybe when you sit down you tend to stick out one of your hips, or maybe you always sit with one shoulder towards other people. This can already be considered your own curvature, and it obviously has its effect on how the horse moves, just as the degree of the horse's curvature influences the quality of your seat. I would also like to draw some attention to the hips. This is one of the most basic elements necessary in horseback riding. Here lies all the balance and in fact the steering wheel. A great deal depends on stabilizing the hips. If their flexibility is limited for any reason, it is worth paying attention to. This is because not every saddle will forgive mistakes in this area. Overuse of the hips will result in a great amount of mistakes that are difficult to correct later on. They can delay your progress for many months or even cause regression. Our next step is not to be afraid to mess up. Very often, not to say always, making progress and moving on to the next step requires messing up something that was already very well practiced. If in this case my trainer keeps telling me to lower my hands, and this is the comment that appears in every lesson, it means that this is in their eyes the most problematic error of our pair. It's better sometimes to get stubborn and have a bad ride but correct this one thing. For example, we lower our hands as low as possible. If we approach the subject this way, we will focus on one mistake, get it fixed, and then we can move on to another mistake that is holding us back. The effect should be great. I know this is radical, or so it seems, but the trainers and instructors in your arena really do their best to pass on their knowledge. Here it is also worth remembering to rate the horse's movement in terms of quality after the execution of the opposite error, in our case lowering the hands as much as we can. If we rated the movement way better than before, then there is probably an improvement. Next thing is to look with someone else's eyes. It is important to rate yourself here and now, and the easiest way to do this is to take part in a clinic, because each coach or instructor pays attention to slightly different elements. Often the instructor gets used to the mistake and reacts before the problem actually occurs. In addition, the problem may be completely different than what your trainer has been paying attention to. An example of this, probably one of my favorite, is heels down. Usually, the positioning of the leg, including the calf and the heel, is influenced by the position of the hips. People who cannot physically fit a big and round horse between their hips because they have insufficiently stretched thigh adductors or hip joint retractions will often defend themselves by bending the knee and pushing the leg forward or lifting the heel up. If the instructor is used to this error bothering him with this rider, he will keep correcting the leg instead of the hips. Looking at a pair for the first time, the trainer can correct the most radical mistakes holding back the progress right now. It is worth taking such remarks to heart because these are the mistakes that will not allow you to make progress. If you manage to fix that mistake, you will be able to work on another one, and that is what it all is about. This brings us to our 10th step, which is don't waste your time. The truth is that after 6 months of trying to fix one mistake, it doesn't matter anymore, and the problem lies somewhere else entirely. If for 6 months you have not been able to correct something, it means that the trainer is trying to fix the wrong problem and that there's another mistake that needs to be corrected as soon as possible. After all, it's not that the rider doesn't try or doesn't want to change it. Sometimes there will be another person in the arena who will pay attention to the position of the shoulders, of the relaxation of the upper part of your body, to the hips positioned as they should, and the heel will drop all by itself. So don't waste your time and the fitness of both yourself and your horse on the same instructor's comments every ride. A good trainer is not afraid of sending their riders to clinics with other trainers. Remember that the same horse will never again be on the same day, at the same age, and in the same shape. Neither will you. In the next step, we're gonna talk about the videos. Videos are subjective. It is practically impossible to make progress by training yourself based on your own videos. The evaluation of a ride will always depend on the feelings that accompanied it. Did you jump higher today? The ride will be great. The horse refused the jump, everything will be wrong. It will not be an objective evaluation. The truth is that it is impossible to be your own trainer. We will always try to explain ourselves because, after all, and here there may be a lot of after alls. I had a headache, I had a knee injury, I always tilt a little towards this side, etc. You need a second opinion to progress faster. However, it is worth recording your rides, especially those lessons that are supposed to initiate progress. With assumption number 8, when we purposefully make a reverse mistake, we need to remember that we are going into another mistake and not into correctness. It is better to look at the movement of the horse and how it has been affected than at yourself, because for obvious reasons you will look bad. At this point, let me remind you that you must always ask permission to record lessons, both from the instructor and other participants. And here we are heading towards the end of this video, so we've got actually 2 pro tips for you guys today. Pro tip number 1, the rider's hips and their problems. With limited hip mobility, it is very difficult to achieve balance in a saddle ill-fitting the rider, and even more difficult in one ill-fitting the horse. If you notice that on this particular horse and in this particular saddle, attention from your instructor or a trainer is always focused on the same thing, for example, not leaning forward, it means that the saddle is ill-fitted to the horse. It is not possible that all riders on this particular horse make the same exact mistake. Likewise, if you are of unusual build, for example a very tall man, you can safely assume that most saddles will be too small for you. Saddles most commonly used in riding schools are suitable to carry a weight of about 70 kilograms. Also, a petite woman will have a better fitting equipment on ponies than on large horses. Therefore, certain things may work out much better for her on ponies. The quality of the tech should not be overestimated, as it will never replace skills. Nevertheless, especially in the beginning, a well-fitted saddle helps a whole lot to make progress. Moving on to pro tip number 2, the horse makes mistakes too. The horse's balance goes through its phases too. We will talk about it a lot in future videos. So there are certain moments in a horse's training that it offers too much relaxation and not enough stiffness, sometimes too much energy, and so on. And this too needs to be corrected. As for the horse's mistakes, we recommend doing everything possible to prevent the mistake. The reason is simple. To develop proper muscle memory, you need a minimum of 100 repetitions, correct ones. To unlearn what you did wrong, you need 1,000 correct repetitions. The shorter way is to make fewer mistakes. So if you know your horse's typical mistakes, plan your exercise so that those very mistakes have as little chance of occurring as possible. The rider has a chance to practice at home and correct some bad habits. The only thing left for the horse to do is to lunge. Remember to subscribe and give us a thumbs up if you liked the video. You can always leave a comment down below or contact us at bioequestrian@gmail.com. If you like our content, follow us on TikTok and Instagram for more.